Okay, so we'll get going as people are kind of trickling in here. Welcome to our Manage Monday webinar series. So this is part 2. So the first part was last week. It was on last Monday. If you missed it, it is on our website. We can fire that link in the chat, or if you get in touch with your account manager, I'm sure they can fire it over to you. But what we're going to be doing today is we're talking about process. So today we're going to go through what processes are in Manage, how they work, and we'll go through an example. So just for anybody that wasn't here last week, or if you're kind of new to Manage, PDM is kind of where we start with Manage. PDM is a fantastic way to mitigate any risk that you have internally. It's there to give you things like revision control, workflow automation, so that you can, create different parts and PDFs and, take that admin work out of your day that you normally have there, as well as being able to preview files without opening them, have more security in the way that your files work. It's a really, really great solution in helping with that. And really where Manage stands is it sits right on top of PDM. So it's very, very deeply integrated with PDM. It extends that capabilities more into the project management realm. Also, kind of true bill of materials management beyond what what PDM does with just the BOM view from SolidWorks. It takes you into EBOM, MBOMs, that sort of thing, which we saw in the first webinar series. Also gives you access to things like dashboards and reports. It's got a built-in reporting tool that's very powerful, as well as more deeply integrates with other business systems as well, with direct connections to a number of different database types. So it does really extend the capabilities of what PDM can do, and it is very, very deeply integrated. So just like we did with the BOM webinar with process, we're going to stick with our scooter example. We're going to be utilizing that for the entire series. And today we're going to be concentrating on just the one assembly there. So we're going to run this through a process, and we're going to see how that works and Manage, and how we can kind of collaborate back and forth. Okay. Now, processes in Manage can be used for a ton of different things. These are just some of the more popular ones that we see, but anywhere in your process where you need to have structured change is where you would use processes. Right? So what we're going to do is, for this webinar, we're going to concentrate on engineering change. Okay, so we're going to start with an engineering change request. We're going to have that move into an engineering change order, and we're also going to utilize reporting in Manage to create our notice. Okay. So we're going to start off with the basics. Okay, starting a process. Where do we go to look for processes? What are they? We're going to get into teamwork. So being able to work with different members of your team or different members of your company through a process, right? As you go through a process, certain people are going to be responsible for certain things, and we'll see how that works with task assignment and that sort of thing. We're going to go through some tracking, so being able to add affected items to your process, being able to quickly figure out, what's being affected by this change, right? And then again, getting that notice off and being able to communicate to those that need it. Right? So we're going to get started on the basics, and just before we get in there, this is a PDM workflow. So again, if you have PDM, if you're thinking about it, if you've never heard of it before, this is what a workflow looks like. This essentially controls the path that a file or a document takes through PDM system, and how it's automated, right? So, it's under editing, it gets submitted for approval, you get a notification, it creates a PDF or what have you, right? It can do a ton of different stuff. The thing with workflow in PDM is it's generally something that is behind the scenes. The admins of your vault, they know what it is and they know what it looks like, but most users, it's this magical thing that gets all their work done the right way and that helps them out and automates everything, right? With Manage, it's a little different, where the process looks similar, because it's, it's laid out with states and transitions, just like you would have in PDM, but the entire company or the entire user base or whoever needs to be able to see where are we through a process have access to that. We can also start a process without any file at all. If we just want, in this case, an engineering change, if we want to start up an engineering change, we just say, I want to start one. I don't need to have, a source document to do that. And the really cool thing is because of the integration with Manage and PDM, that process in Manage can be directly linked into workflow in PDM. So as we go through the process in Manage, we can have the files in PDM transition through their workflow so that there's no double work. You're not going to have to go over and do it in Manage and then go over in PDM and change it there as well. Everything is going to stay synced up. So we're going to start out here with a dashboard. In this case, I've got an engineering change dashboard. And this dashboard allows a lot of good information. I can see my open ECRs. I can see all the different technical feasibilities, costs. I can filter out where my engineering change is coming from. I have a nice little interactive map there that shows different locations, whether it's kind of worldwide or within a country. Things like closed ECRs, which ones were approved, which ones were rejected. And most importantly, I can see all of the pending engineering changes. So, which ones are still waiting to be picked up and what's the severity of them. And you can see I can, highlight in this case a critical one so that it's more easy to identify which one should be worked on first. Okay, so so that critical engineering change request is the first thing that we're going to work on. So we're going to jump down to the processes area in Manage. And we can go to our filter to see our unassigned ECRs really quick, which is really great because we may have a lot of engineering changes. We're going to open up that record and we can get going on it. So this was started by Mark. He put in some basic information, and now we have to go through and kind of figure out what we're going to do with this. So you can see there's our process. Okay, we started. So start is where we started from. We're now under review. And we have to figure out technical feasibility on this engineering change. Can this be done or not? And in order to do that, I'm going to fire over a task to our designer to kind of give us some ideas here. So the feedback that we've gotten is that this assembly is too heavy. It needs to be lightened up a bit. We've started up a process, or we've continued a process in this case. We started an engineering change request, and we just want to send this off to Scott to make sure, who's our design guy or engineer, to make sure that it's going to be feasible for us to be able to do this engineering change. So we've assigned a task to him to say, is there anything that that we can do to make this assembly lighter? We've assigned it to him. We've attached the assembly to the task. And we send it off to him. So he's going to get that notification. It's important to note as well through the different process that we can notify by email at any point through a process. If a certain, you hit a certain state, certain people need to be notified about things, especially through things like engineering change. Very easy to do in Manage. All right, so starting up a process is incredibly easy inside of Manage. You literally go to your processes, right-click, new. It's not a very complex thing to have to deal with, and it's going to give us a ton of visibility as well, which is nice. And we don't have to have a file. We can just start one up, which is really nice. So moving into more of the collaboration on a process. So in this case, Scott Lidgy would log in now, or he would get a notification through email saying that, hey, this needs to be investigated, right? Through the task, he can navigate directly to the assembly, and he can pop it open, in this case in PDM, right from within Manage, because you've got that integration, right? Really, really easy to find what he needs to work on. And at this point in time, he could pop open the assembly inside of SOLIDWORKS, and he can get going on his investigation, right? Also noticing as well that there was a SOLIDWORKS Manage add-in there, which I went over last time as well, that allowed him to very quickly find what he needed. In this case, we're going to pop open our assembly visualization. Everything is loaded by, in this case, mass, and we can see that this part here, it's functioning kind of on its own. It is the second heaviest part in the assembly. The heaviest part there is the main frame, but we can't really change that. So I think that's the one that we're going to change. And in this case, the weight on that sprocket wheel there is 0.85 pounds. We're going to try and reduce that weight. So that looks like a pretty good candidate for our engineering change. It looks like it's got pretty good feasibility on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to suggest that that we move forward with changing this part. So we could jump into the engineering change request, and we can actually add in a comment. So this is a great way to be able to track kind of conversation within a process. We can drag and drop in images. We can type in messages. It allows us just to essentially share information and comments with anyone working on the process. So in this case, we can give them a quick screenshot and say, hey, this is a pretty good part. We can change it. It's not going to greatly affect the rest of the design. What do you think? So we can send that information over. You can see it's going to add it to that comment section there. It's going to say who added it, when did they add it, and it'll give us like a little breakdown of the actual comment itself, right? So that now when the person that's in charge of that process goes to see it, he's going to see that comment in there. And then of course we can say we've finished the task, right? And then when we finish the task, maybe a notification goes out to the person that owns the process saying that, hey, it's this task has been completed. Take a look at the process, and of course everything updates in real time, right? So just like you would get with PDM, you are going to get that company-wide collaboration capabilities. You're going to be able to assign tasks. You're going to be able to have email notifications, just to make sure that more people can work on the process and collaborate when they need to, right? They could be in different departments. They could be in different companies with the web applications of SOLIDWORKS Manage as well. So what we want to do next is we've got our engineering change request. It looks like it's going to be feasible. We're going to be able to go through with it. So what we want to do now is we're going to want to kind of kick off an engineering change order. But before we do that, we want to make sure that when we create that whoever is going to be handling the order knows what's actually going to be changing, knows it's going to be affected by the engineering change. So if we jump back in to Manage, and we can pop open that engineering change request, right? We can see that there's been some updates in our comments, and we can see that from Scott Lidgy in our engineering that this is a pretty good candidate for this this request, and that things are probably going to look okay, so we can fire him a note back, right? And this is just a good, kind of a record of communication between this process as well, right? So give him some nice feedback, and we can now make our decision, right? So we can say, yep, we can do this. We've got a high feasibility on this. We can put in cost estimates or any other information that you need to. I mean, all of these fields are completely configurable, and we can send this to the next stage. Okay. Now, when I do that, I could specify in this case who can work on this stage. So I can be very selective on who's allowed to have access to this. I could also set this up as a group or a user as well. In this case, we'll just throw myself on there. And now we're at the next stage of the process. Okay, so this is where we're going to go ahead and start attaching affected files at the change committee level. Okay, so before we enter our decision, we can go ahead and add files. And in this case, we're just going to search for that one part file that's going to be changing. okay, just on that sprocket. So we can jump into our PDM on the left there, right? We can always do a preview if, to make sure it's the part. It's going to be that integrated eDrawings preview, just like we get in PDM. And we can add that as a part. But there may be other parts that are changing with this. It may be part of different assemblies, or it might have reference files. So really easy and managed to be able to grab those and add those as affected items. And then we can even, just in a quick right click, find related records of the related records if there's other references that need to be added in as well. So it's going to make it really easy to interrogate those affected items and make sure that we're changing everything that we need to change. Okay, so now we can set this to approved. We can put in some comments on this, and we can go ahead and send this off to the next stage. Now what this is going to do is this is going to complete the process, but it also automatically kicked off another process. So if we go through the history, right, we can kind of see our record of decision, or we can see the route that we took through the process, right? We can see that it got accepted, it was approved, and then it was sent up to closed. And when it got to closed, it automatically kicked off an engineering change order, which is another process that it did automatically. And it linked it back to the original request. So we can very quickly jump into that without having to search for it. And you can see that we've got all of the engineering change information inside of the order that's already been entered. And this really comes back to that main concept of only entering information once and being able to use it everywhere that it needs to be used. You don't want to have to enter the same information multiple times. It just opens up the opportunity for error and for risk, and it takes more time, right? So I've got my engineering change order. I want to get going on this. You can see all the affected items are there as well. And before I get going for this, I can accept the process, which is essentially checks it out. It's saying I'm taking ownership of this process. But the first thing I have to do, if you see our different asterisks down there at the bottom, is ECO type, right? So I may be a newer employee. I may be new to this role. I have an express or a standard ECO. What the heck does that mean? The nice thing with processes is I can have stage notes at each step of the process, which is going to give me a little bit of information about that process stage. In this case, what's the difference between an express ECO and a standard ECO with some examples. This is all rich text. We can copy and paste it from Word if you've got SOP that's already existing, but really allows you to make sure that people are not only following the direction that you need, but they make informed decisions, especially if they're not 100% used to that process yet. And in this case, we can just finish up some change details there. We can assign this to someone in particular. In this case, we'll assign it to myself. And we can send this to the next stage. Okay. So we've now gone through that initial, express ECO in this case. So we're following a specific path on our process. If I go to my history, right? So we, at our start, chose our engineering change type. If we had chosen the standard one, it would have taken us through the plan review, see if there's any rework. If there's not, kick us up to work in progress. But because we're doing an express one, it's going to kick us right through to work in progress, which you can see that's where we are. So that orange with those 3 ellipses lets us know the current stage that we're on. And up top there as well, you can see that just in text form, it's going to show us, who accepted the last stage, when did they do it, and any additional information that we want to capture as well. So what we're going to do at this point is we actually have to make the change. So we're going to do it the same way we did with kind of investigating. We're going to create a task, and we're going to say, you know what, we need to make the change. In this case, maybe we have to come up with a couple different design ideas. So we'll say make design change. We can pop in some notes here as well. So we can just say, hey, complete the ECO and give us a couple different design ideas. Right. I could put in some steps if I wanted to. I could change the time allocation, maybe give them a couple days or what have you. And of course, attach any pertinent information to the task itself. So in this case, we'll attach the actual part being changed. Turn on our images there so it's easier to identify, and we'll attach that. All right, so now he knows exactly what he's changing. As soon as he opens up the task, he can pop that file open and get going on it. And we'll go ahead and assign that to Mr. Lidgy. There we go, save it. Now that task has been assigned and it's been attached to that process so that when it gets completed, again, you're going to get that instant update, but you could also get informed once it's complete that, hey, you're ready to take a look at it and move on in the process. Okay. So we're not going to actually go through the SOLIDWORKS side of things just because of the amount of time that we have today, but let's say that Mr. Lidgy went through, opened in SOLIDWORKS, made the changes, and updated the task. And in this case, he actually attached additional files to the task. We can see we've got a round design and a slot design. He's given us two different designs to think about. And we could do an internal review. And in this case, we are going to go with the slot design. It's a better design and it sheds more weight. But this is a good thing. We can kind of pass information back and forth. We can attach additional items to that task. So then when and we can also put in additional notes as well. So if I say, hey, I attached these two, please review, complete the task, and give that information back to the person that assigned it to you, or in this case, the person that owns the process. Okay. So the big thing here too is that Manage, it knows the links, it knows everything and all the references, and any references you've attached, any files as well. So really, you're getting a lot better information out, especially with the affected files, of making sure that not only are you controlling change, but you're controlling change on the right records and the right parts. So now we want to be able to do is, we've made our changes in our engineering change order, but we also want to be able to communicate those changes and kind of what's coming down the pipe to people in manufacturing or people that might be alerted during the engineering change with an engineering change notice. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop open our process, and based on the changes, we're going to make a little bit of a few notes here as well. So we're going to say we're going to go with the slot design, which is going to let them know which design that we're moving forward with. But we also may want to just give manufacturing, whoever's going to be making the change, a heads up as to what's actually changing before it gets there. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to take the bill of materials, we're going to copy it in from the assembly, and we're going to tell them what on the BOM is actually going to be changing and why it's going to be changing. So in this case, we will take the bill of materials from that rear swing arm assembly, and we will pop it into the BOM of the process. So you can really use bills of materials in a lot of different ways and a lot of different areas in Manage. In this case, we're going to utilize it for markup. We're going to say that we're modifying that sprocket, and just in the comments, we'll say, essentially as per engineering change information, which is all there, as per that design change. So we'll save it so that we can make sure that that gets to the people down the line, right? Send it off to our next stage. Right, and that's going to finish off. Well, it's going to finish off ours ECO anyways, but of course we could follow any process we wanted. And then at that point, we could auto fire off a change notice using the reporting tools in Manage. And that's going to give us all the information that we need. Any kind of barcoding. Manage supports a ton of different barcoding options. We're going to see all the affected items. We can see the BOM markup in this case as to what's being modified. Sign-offs we can put on here. You can see we've got a summary of the engineering change notice as well. And these can be fully configured to any company's layout as well. So if you currently have a layout for your engineering change notices, we can make it look exactly the same. The only difference is it's going to automatically populate, right? And the reporting tool is incredibly powerful in Manage. We can pull information from just Manage. We can pull information from Manage and other business systems if you're connected to, an ERP or an MRP, or you have, other even homegrown database systems. We can pull the information from there, and we can kind of concatenate it all inside of one report, and really just show the information any way that it needs to be shown to easily absorb it. So really, really powerful reporting capabilities. That also goes with the dashboards that you saw earlier as well. They can be connected to other data sources to combine information from multiple locations into kind of one single source as well. So there's a big one with Manage, and that's something that you you don't necessarily get the same kind of capability in PDM. Certainly PDM can perform some reporting for you, but the level of reporting that you get with Manage is unbelievable. It's very, very robust, and it's really easy to absorb. You can really choose the way that your data gets displayed. So that's a general overview of processes and kind of the time that we had today. Some other things that you can utilize Manage for with structured change in processes. And the first one is cases. So cases are available in Manage as well. They are very similar to processes. The biggest difference is that they are strictly for communication, essentially. So things like time off requests, or maybe machine preventative maintenance schedules and requests, that sort of thing. So you can utilize cases where they still have structured change. If you ask for a day off at your company, I'm sure it has to go through certain people. Certain people have to make decisions on it. It allows for full visibility on that. Where are they at in this, that kind of thing, without the need for saying, I have affected files, right? That's just talk. You're just communicating internally. You don't necessarily have affected files. So cases are available as well. You can use processes with other business systems as well. So you can use processes to export out XML information for things like updating bills of materials and ERPs, that sort of thing. So we can export out information from processes external to Manage. And you can also utilize it for a ton of different stuff. So you can utilize it for creating other processes or sub-processes, right? If you've got 10 files that need to be approved before something can be approved at a whole, you can make 10 sub-processes automatically. You can automatically create projects. You can collaborate externally with the SOLIDWORKS Manage web portal and have your customers contribute to process as well if they need to make sign-offs or if they need to see dashboards or what have you. So there's a ton you can do. Processes really are the backbone of Manage, and they facilitate the rest of the Manage environment as well. So it looks like we are right on time, which that's two webinars in a row that I've been right on time, which I'm pretty impressed with myself, because usually I'm way over, which gives us a bit of time for questions, which is great. So if anybody has any questions, I am more than happy to answer them. And what do we got here? So the first question was, can you send the ECN notification in parallel to multiple people? Absolutely. So you can send that notification to individual people. You can have it send to a group of people. So if you have an ECN group, which could just be department heads or something like that all need to get that ECN notification. You could also have it automatically send and attach to the process as well, so that anybody that went to the process would be able to see a copy of that ECN. There's a lot of different options when it comes to sending that stuff through, but absolutely we can notify as many people as required, which is a major part, especially through engineering change. Everyone needs to be notified, otherwise the whole thing can fall apart, right? So absolutely. All right, we'll manage. Sorry, just reading through some of these here. So, so there is one about the 3D Experience platform. That one might be a good one to take offline, but essentially it's integration with 3D Experience. 3D Experience does have its own kind of PLM, PDM aspect of it. So at this time, there's no direct connection. But I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the future? But currently, there's no direct connection. But certainly, if you want more information about that, we can take that one offline. Sorry, just reading through some of these here. So there's one here that just, as far as ERP integration, so can processes work in parallel with ERP systems? And can ERP users see the status of a process for a given part? So the way that Manage interfaces with other business sources is we can connect directly to the database. In order to send information back, we have to, it's a 3-step process just because most ERPs do not like you writing directly to their databases. It's usually against their EULAs, and they have to do, data validation and that sort of thing. So, but the managed database is fully readable. So any information that you want to get from manage into your ERP would just be connecting your ERP to the managed database and making sure that you're pulling from the right spot, which certainly we can help with. And vice versa for manage, we just make sure that we pull from the right spot in the ERP. So would ERP users be able to see the status of a process for a given part? Sure, the data is there. All you would have to do is link to it and pull that information. There's one that says, are groups users synced with PDM? And if not, are PDM user groups available in Manage? Absolutely, yes. Again, with that integration with PDM. So when you first sync up a vault, it's going to bring over all of the users. It's going to bring over all of the groups that already exist in PDM into Manage. And if they change in PDM, they can be synced into Manage as well. So, if you make changes from the PDM side, you can have that update in Manage also. And all of their securities, PDM-wise, are also respected in Manage. There's another one here. Are you able to extract data on the timely completion of projects and project tasks and create a KPI? Absolutely. Really, the data is there. You can do anything that you need to do with it, and really that's that power of the reports. It really just comes down to how do you want to utilize the data, and how do you want to display the data. But absolutely, if the data is there, you can use it. And again, you can pull in other data as well from other systems. If you may have manufacturing time tracking going on and stuff like that, whether it's from your ERP or you have other software, you can pull all that information in as well. But absolutely. All right. So I think, oh, we got some more over in the chat here. Can portals be used internally for those departments that don't have SolidWorks seats? Absolutely. So the kind of the licensing structure, the way that Manage works is very similar to PDM. So you will have a CAD editor level where if you are someone that uses SolidWorks, it will give you SolidWorks integration and all that kind of stuff, but you will have a contributor level as well. So you can use that on a Windows machine, even if you don't have SolidWorks installed, which will give you the managed environment and access to everything. Also, if you're not running on a supported machine, if you're running on a Mac, or if you prefer to just use web portals, or you're on an iPad, or you're out and about, or what have you, there are kind of 2 levels of a web app that comes with Manage. It comes pre-installed, that allow for full access to everything as well, and full access to kind of the project management we'll get into next week, and processes and everything like that. So there's another one about integration with non-SolidWorks programs. So in this case, it made an ECO or other process might affect software and electrical. So that's really where that XML would jump back and forth. We would probably have to take a look at that kind of on a process by process basis. But being able to kind of see what those softwares are capable of as well. But most of them can import in information. And the most popular is XML. We can also export in CSV, and kind of any format that's required to get that information in there. But essentially just utilizing process behind the scenes, just like you would with PDM, to keep all that information synced and up to date between the different programs is probably how we would handle that. But again, that would be more on a kind of a case-by-case basis. We would have to see the software that's being utilized and the whole workflow, and that's really where our process assessment comes in as well, so we can see how the data flows and make those connections and see how that would work out. But very versatile in how we can do that with Manage. See, is the portal web app only in 2020 or also the 2019 version? It is absolutely in every version. There is 2 versions of the app though. So there's what's called a targeted app, which is more for external customers to the company. So if you're working with a contractor, or you want to let a customer in so they can see a kind of a design review, that has always been there. The other side of the web app is it's more the full web app. It's the full interface internally. It's more for people that just are running remotely or in unsupported environments. That one installs by default in 2020. In 2019, I think SP3 or later it installs, but before that we would have to install it separately. But we can absolutely, if it's not there, certainly we can take a look at your implementation and pop that in there. It's pretty quick, but I believe it installs by default in SP3 or later, but I have to double check that. But even if it's not installed automatically, it's absolutely available. Okay, so can emails and other project documents be stored, and where do these go, and how are they linked? So you are getting ahead of me because we're going to see a little bit of that on the next webinar. But I'm gonna give you a spoiler. Absolutely. So there is direct Outlook integration with Manage as of 2020 that allows us to take an email and pop it as a reference directly into. We're going to do it as a project, but you could do it as into a record or what have you, and pop that into a record so that you can reference that. And they get linked directly inside of Manage. And we'll go over all that in the next week. Fun with project management. All right, so I think we're going to cut it off there. I don't see any more questions trickling in. If you do have any questions at all, which usually happens about 20 minutes after the broadcast, feel free to reach out to your account manager. Feel free to reach out to me directly, and more than happy to answer any questions you guys have. But thank you so much for joining me for this half hour, and hope to see you next Monday.